All right, hello everyone. Welcome to your January webinar training. It's hard to believe that it is 2017, 2016 has come and gone. And so I thought, it's important at the beginning of a new year to take stock of where we are. And we're kind of in the middle of like an ID 916 year, if you will, because a lot of times people think of it as starting in the fall, and that's kind of the beginning of the new year with ID 916. But in reality, because we're dealing with young adults, this is the beginning of a new year, 2017. And what I want to focus on now, over the next just like 15 minutes, I'm going to try to do these videos a little shorter and more often so that we can hit on like practical and then hit on inspirational, maybe even once a month practical, once a month inspirational. So what I want to look at is, at the beginning of a new year, how do we set goals for our teams to A, keep them motivated, but then B, really accomplish something? And a lot of this was hammered home for me. We've all heard the importance of goal setting. That's not something new, and we've talked about that before. And you have the idea of like a SMART goal, right? Shared, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. That's a good way to think about a goal. Is it shared by the whole team? Is it measurable? Can you actually tell whether or not you've accomplished that goal? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? Is it within reach? Is it relevant to the mission? Is it actually pertinent to what you're going to be working on? And then is it time-based? Does it have a date on it? Is there a time when it needs to be done? So that's kind of like one traditional model of it. Another one that I ran across, it came from a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. I highly recommend it. It's 4 Disciplines of Execution by a guy named Chris McChesney. And what he does is he breaks down all the things that need to be done in an organization or a community or a group into 2 basic categories. And there's some nuance here that I don't have time to get into, but he calls one category the whirlwind, and then one category the wildly important goal, or the WIG. Okay? So you have the whirlwind and you have the WIGs. What's the whirlwind? The whirlwind's all that stuff that if you don't do today, your doors will close tomorrow. Or another way of putting it is, it's just that stuff that just comes up that consumes a lot of time and a lot of energy. That's really important. You have to do that. If you don't do it, like you could go out of business tomorrow. But at the end of the day, you can kind of have that day where you feel like you've worked really, really hard, and then you look back on your day, it's hard to determine. It's kind of actually hard to determine what you've actually done or what you've accomplished. So there's like this whirlwind. It's the stuff that just comes up out of nowhere. It's the stuff like, I need to go out and buy name tags. Or even the Disciples Night, to an extent, can be part of the whirlwind. We need to promote it. We need to get food ready. We need to set up. We need to take down. It's all really important. All needs to be done. But, is a foundational piece, but it's not necessarily moving the ball down the field. It's not necessarily doing something what he would classify as wildly important. And the way you classify a WIG is at the corner of really, really important and isn't going to happen on its own. So what's that thing that, like, without intentional focus on, is just not going to be accomplished, but yet is really, really important for the sustainability and the growth of the organization? So another way of thinking about this is, if you don't start working on this wildly important goal now, your doors will be closed in 4 months. So it's the thing that 4 months from now, you don't want to look back and say, man, I wish we had been focused on that. I wish we had spent some time working on this. Because it's one of those things that the whirlwind would consume unless we strategically carve out time within our day and within our weeks and whatever, within our team, to say, these are things that we need to accomplish. And he goes into a whole process of how you evaluate the wildly important goal, how you keep on point with the wildly important goal, how to, like, he even calls it a scoreboard, so that your teams can see whether or not you're moving towards accomplishing the WIG. Because one of his premises is that people want to know whether or not they're winning or losing. So it's important to be able to measure right away, like, are we winning, are we losing, are we behind schedule, are we ahead of schedule, where are we at with these things? And so he talks about how you create a scoreboard. But for ID 916, I think it is a nice way of looking at what we do within our chapter, especially since some of you, and then most of your leadership teams, this is not their full-time job, right? So this is not something that they're able to devote all their time and resources to. So to be able to distinguish within the team the difference between what is whirlwind and what are our SMART, wildly important goals, I think is really important for the growth of a chapter and the sustainability of the chapter. Plus, leadership teams want to know what they're going for, where they're going, and is it working? And when you first start a chapter, it's pretty easy, right? I mean, the wildly important goal is like start a disciples night, have someone show up. Like that's kind of it at the beginning. Then, as the chapter progresses and you grow to a certain size, say you get to the point where you've gotten a regularly 25 to 40 people every month. That's amazing. That's good stuff. Now, does the leadership team stagnate and say like, well, maybe we've tapped out. This is really all we can do? Or do you set a wildly important goal to say, unless we change some things, unless we focus on bringing new people in, we're going to just maintain this level, and the next thing you know, a couple people are going to get married, a couple people are going to have kids, and our numbers, which were at like 40, are going to drop down to 20, 19, 15, and before long, a year later, it's gone. It's one of my little, it's a hypothesis of mine, but I think it's one of the reasons why most young adult ministries have about a 3-year shelf life. First year, all growth, all good, excitement. Second year, kind of like, okay, where are we going? What's the next step? We're just kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over again. And then the third year is like, well, it's just a steady decline and kind of managing decline. And then at some point, either you just shut it down or try something new. So I don't want that to be the case for our chapters. And I think it's really important that each team and each segment within the team starts to look at, okay, what are those things that we just have to do? That's the whirlwind. And then what are those things that we need to set as a smart wig to really shoot for, and we say, okay, in 4 months we're going to measure it, or in 3 months we're going to measure where we're at towards this goal, and so on and so forth. So what are some examples of that? One of the reasons I wanted to do this, I was just talking to Father Jacob Cawthor down in Victoria, Texas, about the goals for their chapter. And so as I was thinking about what the goals for their chapter would be, it kind of gave me some general goals or ideas of goals that you could bring to your team to say, let's assess where we are, where we've been, what are the things we're doing well, what are the things we're not doing so well. Now let's set some tangible goals for us moving forward the next few months. So, one obvious one is more people associated with the community, and probably tying that to the Disciples Night. So, I've already kind of mentioned it. What maybe your attendance rate is at this level, the wildly important goal could be to raise it by 15 or 20%. So I've got 35 people coming every month, which is great. I want to raise that by 25, 30%, and now we're going to get up into the 50s. Why is that a wildly important goal? Well, if you don't focus on it, it might happen, but probably not. And so it becomes a wig because it's wildly important to have more people associated, and it's probably not going to happen on its own. That's that crossroads. So then you start to develop strategies and things to think about. What do we need to do in order to boost attendance? Do we need to have a more significant online presence? Do we need to be more intentional about who we invite? Do we need to, even though it's not part of the ID structure, we're going to do a come and see night and really, really, beat the bushes trying to find people to come. Maybe we need to do more social events. Maybe we need to just do more community. Maybe it's time to transition into phase 2 and get the discipleship groups up and running so that we have more committed people who are more excited about what we're doing, and the people who are kind of like on the fringes see that there is a path that we want to bring them on. I don't know. That's where you bring that to your teams and say, is this a wildly important goal? What are the strategies for it? Another one would be the discipleship groups. Where are we at with those? Are we moving towards phase 2 of we've got our disciples night going and it's going well and we're bringing more people in, or maybe it's not going well and we need to adjust it, but then are we looking towards the future saying we need to get these men and women connected into a small group? And I admit this has not been a strong suit of ours from the central office in helping you do this, and it's a priority. It's a wildly important goal for our team here in Ann Arbor to help you be more equipped to bring more people into those discipleship groups. Because the reality is we're sitting on a lot of good content right now on our website and through the video series that we've created. It's excellent. The question is, how do we get it into the hands of the people in your chapter? How do we cast the vision for why discipleship groups are so important? Why it's worth committing to them at least for 6 months and then a year after that? What are we talking about here? And so the wildly important goal could be we want to have 2 men's groups and 2 women's groups functional moving forward by May of this year. Okay, so what's that going to take? Working backwards. We need to identify some leaders. We need to get those leaders on board with what this means. We need to talk to Pete about how to use the content effectively. We need to do. We need to, at the next Disciples Night, we need a really good announcement of why this is important, and we need to have sign-up sheets that are waiting for people. So you get the idea. Wildly important goal. Another wildly important goal that I'd like to propose for each of the chapters, because it ties into one of the ID Central Office's goals, is to plan a kind of like a retreat day or a summit day for each chapter. So I've mentioned this to you previously, but one of our goals for the year is to be face-to-face with each chapter, kind of helping you move the chapter in whatever direction we feel like the Lord needs to move it. So is it towards phase 2? Is it into deeper conversion? Is it into more empowerment? What is it that the chapter needs? And then we want to find the day for our team to come visit your team and your people and see what the Lord wants to do. So the way I'm envisioning it, it would be like a Friday night with the leadership team and our team, and then half-day Saturday or an all-day Saturday thing for the whole community and try to win people to it. And it could be a launch of discipleship groups, like I said, or it could be just simply, we just need to help people dive deeper into the mission of the church and the mission of ID 916 and how it impacts their life. Or we need to go deeper into like prayer and holiness. We're kind of all superficially connected. Or maybe we just need more of the Holy Spirit. This is where we need to be just endowed with more power from on high. Whatever it is, we want to work with you to figure out what would be best served for your chapter. But to schedule that, and see, again, it's a smart, wildly important goal because it can be shared within your team. It's measurable. Did you or did you not do it? It's attainable. Certainly we can all do it. It's relevant because a one-day summit conference experience really does move the mission forward, and it's time-based. Let's set a date and say we're going to do this in 2017. And I'm committed to getting to you kind of like multiple dates that work for our team. I need about a week or two more to solidify what dates work for our team. Then I'm going to send them to you, and then it's going to be a bit of a first-come, first-served basis. Whoever's available and wants to sign up for those dates, that's when we'll do our kind of local summits. And I just think there's something really cool about us coming to you this year and spending time in your environments, in your home bases, as opposed to inviting you to come to our place for the summit. We're going to bring it to you, and that's where we've set aside money to do this, and so it won't be a significant financial commitment, and we can work through the details of that. But maybe that's the wildly important goal. We need to move the ball down the field in this capacity, and we're going to use this opportunity to have the ID team come in as part of that solution. Okay. Those are 3 examples. I mean, I think another wildly important goal could be we want to be more integrated into the parishes that are supporting us. We want to sit down with Father, and we want to do quarterly at least one event where ID 916 shows up in force and blesses the parish. So it could be the parish picnic day. Okay, well, we're going to show up and we're going to clean up the whole thing, and the parish is going to know that ID 916 young adults. They're young adults that are doing this thing called ID whatever, are fully integrated into the parish. We're going to sit down with Father and say, Father, like, where's your heart right now? Where do you see a need? And how can we help you? And then we're going to craft a goal around whatever that is and really work hard to get young adults integrated there. So those are just some examples. And I think, again, to reiterate, the point of this is to have some very specific, targeted initiatives, goals to look at as a team, that we can feel and they can feel like, am I winning or am I losing? Are we as a chapter growing or are we not? Because if there's not these tangible goals and there's not a way to measure it, it can be very easy to drift and feel like, well, I mean, we're doing this thing and it seems like it's working, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it's working and sometimes it does. And there's just, it kind of cuts down on some of the ambiguity of what we're about. So, WIGs in Whirlwind. Help identify them within your chapter. Put this on them. Give them a little vision of what I'm talking about. Maybe even show them this video and then say, what do you think, team? Where are we at? What's our whirlwind? What are our WIGs? How can we dive into it? If you need more resource on it, I highly recommend the book. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Chris McChesney. Just an awesome way of kind of looking at, like, it's not hard to come up with strategy often, but it's hard to execute that strategy, and this is part of the tools for that. The other thing I'll last mention at the video, I made a Facebook group for our chapter leaders just to stimulate conversation between all of you and anyone else who's on your leadership team. So anyone who's on your leadership team, feel free to add into that group. because I want it to be a place, a forum of best practices. I hate that term, but communication about this is working, this isn't working, this is what we need, this is why isn't this happening? Is anyone else experiencing this? And then also I'll be able to post these videos in that group as well. So God bless you. We're praying for you, and look for more of these videos as I get my act together. All right, God bless. Bye.